What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Toyota? Probably boring, followed closely by reliable. But if you rewinded the clock about 70 years, the story would be quite the opposite. Toyota was struggling, selling weak, unreliable cars unfit for international markets. But fast forward to today and Toyota dominates the world, selling more cars than any other brand. So how did Toyota transform itself from a laughingstock into a global powerhouse? Let's dive in. You see, before Toyota made cars, they made looms. Sorry, they didn't just make looms, they revolutionized them, transforming the Japanese textile industry with their game-changing automatic looms. But founder Sakichi Toyoda's eldest son, Kichiro, wasn't just satisfied playing around with threads and fabric. He had much grander visions for the family business: cars.
I hope it's Toyota.
So in 1937, Toyota launched their first car, the Model AA, whose design was, let's say, borrowed from its American counterparts. And in all honesty, the AA was pretty forgettable, and only sold around 1,400 vehicles. Over the next few years, Toyota managed to find its place in the Japanese auto scene, creating utilitarian, rugged cars designed for functionality over comfort. But then a little something called World War II came along and ruined everything. The Japanese economy was in tatters, and Toyota knew that in order to survive, they needed to break into larger markets like Europe and of course the US. So that's exactly what they did. Their first major export was the Crown, and to say it was disastrous is a bit of an understatement. You see, the Crown was built for Japan and its uneven and sometimes even unpaved roads. But when it met the fast, smooth highways in Europe and the US, it was slow and even unstable. Its engine was underpowered and its cooling system couldn't handle long-distance high-speed driving, leading to overheating issues. To American consumers used to more robust cars with higher power, the Crown was undependable. And just 3 years later, in 1960, Toyota halted exports to the States. But you know the story doesn't end there. Somehow, just 7 years later, Toyota would become the third best-selling import brand to the US, and in '75 they would be number one. But how? How on earth would Toyota go from disaster to dominating the global car industry? Well, the secret was the Toyota Production System, or TPS for short, a revolutionary manufacturing philosophy that basically created lean manufacturing. You see, after the whole Crown debacle, Toyota knew they couldn't just give it a facelift and move on. No, they needed a new approach. So that's exactly what the Toyota Production System was, focusing on efficiency, quality, and continuous improvement. And yeah, I know that sounds pretty cliche, and I'm pretty sure I've used those exact words on job applications before. But Toyota, well, they were serious about it, and they built the TPS around two main pillars. The first was something called just-in-time manufacturing. This meant that parts were only delivered exactly when needed. No stockpiles, no waste. This didn't just allow Toyota to cut costs, it also meant that they could adapt quickly. If a part needed to be changed or improved, Toyota could do it without any hesitation, as they didn't need to chuck out a huge stockpile of parts. The second major pillar was something called Jidoka, or in English, automation with the human touch. You see, while other car makers rush and try to shove as many machines onto the production line as possible, Toyota instead lets humans perfect the process first. And slowly but surely, they start to add more and more automation. And if you're thinking right now that Jidoka sounds pretty slow, well, that's because it is. But this attention to detail ensures Toyota's manufacturing is extremely high quality, and it pays off in the long term. For example, remember how Tesla kept having to delay the release of the Model 3? Well, that's because Elon Musk spammed robots everywhere, and their reliance on automation meant that even little flaws would compound and throw machines down the production line further and further off. This is something that Jidoka would have prevented. While a lot of other companies might have a similar system to Jidoka or just-in-time manufacturing, what truly allows TPS to thrive in Toyota was its focus on Kaizen, or continuous improvement. You see, Toyota, more than any other manufacturer, empowers their workers, allowing anyone from an assembly line worker right up to the CEO to halt production at any point to point out an issue. In fact, halting production is encouraged at Toyota, and numbers don't lie. The Ford manufacturing plant in Dearborn, Michigan stopped an average of 2 times per week, while the Kentucky Toyota plant would stop production 2,000 times per week. I also like to stop working, but it's mostly to nap and snack. Anyways, back to our point. Toyota re-entered the US in 1965 with the Corona. Apparently that was a good name back in the day. Anyways, the Corona was popular, just like it was in 2020. But unlike its predecessor, the Crown, it was actually designed for US roads, and thanks to the new Toyota production system, it was reliable too. And to add fuel to the fire, just 3 years later, Toyota dropped the Corolla. And I'm pretty sure you know how that went, becoming the most popular car ever, selling over 50 million units to date.
You asked for it, you got it, Toyota.
In just 5 short years, Toyota went from unreliable to dependable, from pulling out to penetrating deeper. But their biggest break was yet to come. In 1973, a group of Arab states launched a surprise attack on Israel. And when the US and other Western nations stuck their nose in and backed Israel, the Arabs imposed heavy oil embargoes on the West, leading to the oil crisis. These skyrocketing oil prices meant that big, bulky American cars just weren't well affordable anymore, and Toyota's reliable lineup of small, rugged cars began to look more and more appealing. Through the rest of the 70s, Toyota and other Japanese manufacturers were living high. Cars like the Corolla and Celica became household names around the world, and sales were only boosted by a growing dealer network, which meant that the already affordable maintenance of these cars was now accessible as well. And by 1986, Toyota became the first importer ever to sell 1 million cars in the US. Even after all that, Toyota still wasn't done, setting their sights on the luxury market by launching Lexus in 1989. Lexus redefined what a luxury car could be. The LS400, for example, was just as luxurious as its European counterparts, but it was also reliable and somewhat affordable. And of course, who can forget Jeremy Clarkson's favorite car, the Prius, the world's first mass production hybrid.
Is the Toyota Prius, because that is a cynical marketing exercise for the gullible and the stupid.
It was hit after hit. Through the 2000s and 2010s, Toyota's boring but dependable lineup of RAV4s, Camrys and Hiluxes dominated their respective categories. And despite never having the best tech or the best features, Toyota continued to give customers exactly what they wanted. And the future for Toyota looks just as bright. Their gamble, or well, anti-gamble if you will, on electric cars is seeming to pay off. While everyone else went all in on electric, Toyota's loyalty to internal combustion and hybrid technology appears to be the right call, with reports showing that almost half of EV owners want to go back to a combustion engine for their next car. Even other brands like Mercedes, GM and Volvo are rolling back their EV targets to focus on hybrids and internal combustion. On top of all that, get this, Toyota's even trying to become cool. In 2017, CEO Akio Toyoda declared no more boring cars, and it looks like they've kept to their word. The very next year, Toyota finally reached the top step at Le Mans with their GR010 hybrid. And beyond the track, they've channeled that GR flair into fan favorite models like the GR Yaris, Corolla, 86, and of course the Supra. And look, in no way is Toyota perfect. One of my first videos was actually about GR Corollas spontaneously catching on fire. And who can forget the floor mat disaster that led to almost 4 million cars being recalled in 2009. But while the story of Toyota is filled with these downs, every time thanks to their dedication to improvement, they keep getting back up. Plus, it feels like they're one of the last brands that still care about us petrol heads, feeding our desire for cheap, fun, sporty cars. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to subscribe for more fun car content and let me know below, have you ever owned a Toyota? What do you think of them?